Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, relaxing's the name of the game. We're making a crochet cardigan that pairs wonderfully with a book and a nook for those oh so gloomy autumn days. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, the best easy to follow modern crochet tutorials and patterns for fall are here, with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 660 grams of yarn. That's 1,500 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you like cake or pie better. This is really hard, but I think I like pie more. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this cardigan started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that starts at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would lay, down to where we like the bottom of this cardigan to be, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well. So I would like for mine to be just about 8.5 inches or 21 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 30, and I actually already have this portion completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do a single crochet row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert, starting with just 1 single crochet. Then from here, continue with 1 single crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. We made our way all the way down with our row 1, leaving that last chain. Into that last chain, we're all going to do an increase, and the increase is going to be 1 single, 1 half double, 1 double, all into that same last stitch. So starting with that last stitch, insert with 1 single. Into that same last stitch, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, that's our half double. Then for a double, yarn over into that same last stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that our row 1 is completed, we should have 2 more stitches than chains that we made. And just as a fun fact, we're doing these types of increases instead of just an increase of 3 single crochets, so that we get some good height for the top of our piece, because if we just do 3 single crochets, it could end up curving and not giving us the height that we need to reach all the way up to our shoulder. Now, this is going to be a 3-row repeat. Our first row is going to be a single crochet row, then 2 moss stitch rows. So to get started, on our following moss stitch row, we're going to start with a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. That second chain is going to count as a chain. Then we're going to flip our work. Now we're always going to be increasing along the top of our piece. The top is going to be where our tail end is. So to do our moss stitch, we're going to skip that first stitch. And into that next stitch, we're going to insert with an increase of 3 single crochets. So insert with 1 into that same stitch with a second, and into that same stitch with a 3rd single crochet. Now whenever we're along the top getting started on our moss stitch row, this is going to be how we do our increases. Then from here we're going to continue on with the rest of our moss stitches. But just to count this out, we should have 4 stitches so far for this row. Our first stitch is that chain space that we made since we skipped that first stitch. Then the next 3 is our increase. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4. From here we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next, single crochet, again, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next with another single crochet. We're going to continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row, and at the end of the row we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row. Now everyone's row 2 is complete. Now the third row in our 3-row repeat is going to be another moss stitch row. So whenever we're getting started on a moss stitch row that starts along the bottom, we're going to start with a chain 2. Like the previous one, that first chain is going to count as our turning chain. Our second chain is going to count as a chain and flip our work. Now when it comes to doing our second moss stitch row, each of our single crochets is going to be worked into our previous row's chain spaces to get the texture that we want. So after that chain 2, we are going to skip that first stitch, which should be a single crochet from our previous row, and into that next stitch, which should be our chain space, insert with a single crochet. Now so far for this row we should have 2 stitches. That first stitch is our chain space. It might be a little hard to see, but it is there, and then that single crochet. Again, we're going to chain 1. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next, which should be our chain space, insert with a single crochet. Now since we're getting started on a moss stitch row that starts along the bottom, working our way up towards the top, we're going to continue on with our moss stitch, making our way up, leaving the last 2 stitches. So we've made our way up with our third row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now just to remember, that second to last stitch is that first single crochet that we made from our previous row's increase, and that last stitch is that chain space. Now as a really quick tip, the chain space along the edges of our moss stitch rows could be a little hard to see, but we just want to make sure that we're always working into there when we need to. So what we're going to do from here is chain 1. Skip 1 stitch and into the last, like I said, which is that chain space, we're going to do a single, half double, double, all into there. So skip 1, into that last stitch with a single, same last stitch with a half double, same last stitch with a double crochet. Now every row for this portion should have 2 more stitches than our previous row because of the types of increases that we're doing. From here it is going to be our 3-row repeat, so 1 single crochet, 2 moss stitch rows until we have a portion that reaches the top of our shoulder. Now as a quick tip, since our row repeat is worked in odd numbers, so 3 rows, sometimes the single crochet rows can end along the top and sometimes the single crochet rows can end along the bottom. So I'm just going to do the following 3 rows with you guys again just to make sure we know how to do all the rows. So we are along the top and we're about to get started on our following single crochet row. So how we're going to get started on that is we're going to start with a chain 3. There's 1, 2, 3. That chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch. That is our turning chain. We're going to flip our work, and into that first stitch from our previous row we're going to insert with an increase, and this increase is going to be a double, half double, single because we're working our way down towards the bottom. So yarn over into that first stitch with a double crochet, into that same first stitch with a half double crochet, into that same stitch with a single crochet. From here, continue with 1 single crochet into the rest of our stitches. We are back and our first 4 rows are now complete. We should have 2 more stitches in our previous row again, and now we're going to get started on our following moss stitch row. So whenever we're getting started on a moss stitch row that starts along the bottom, we're going to chain 2. First chain counts as a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, flip our work, then do our moss stitch all the way up, leaving the last 2 stitches. So skip the first stitch, into the next, with a single crochet, and continue till we have 2 stitches left. We are back, we all have 2 stitches left. Now what we're going to do is chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and into the last with a single, with a half double, and with a double crochet. Then to do our row 6 or a moss stitch row that starts along the top, we're going to chain 2. First chain counts as a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, flip our work. Then to do the moss stitch that starts along the top, we're going to skip that first stitch, and into that next stitch, so into the second stitch, we're going to do an increase of 3 single crochets. So skip 1. Into that second with 1 single, same with a second single, same with a third single crochet. Don't forget the first stitch of this row is that chain space. Then continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. So we are back and our first 6 rows are completed. From here, what we're going to do is continue to repeat these 6 rows until we now have a portion that can reach from under bust, so making sure that this tail end is still staying at our under bust, or roughly where our underwire would sit, all the way up until this edge reaches the top of our shoulder. Then I will meet everyone back right after a single crochet row that ends along the bottom, or an even numbered single crochet row. Then I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the shoulder. So we are back. The neckline portion of my front panel is complete. Now, as a really quick tip, it may start to curve in like this just a smidge, but it's completely fine. It all evened out once when it's seamed up and worn. But just to let you guys know, I have a total of 22 rows, and this width is roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do our shoulder portion, and the shoulder portion is going to be super duper simple. Just 3 moss stitch and 1 single crochet row with no increases, no decreases. So just to get started on the following row, since we all should be along the bottom, we're going to chain 2. Then all we're going to do is skip that first stitch into that second with a single crochet. Then from here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. So our first shoulder row is complete. We've made our way all the way up with our moss stitch row. Then from here, we're going to chain 2, flip to do our second moss stitch row. So per usual, first chain counts as a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain. We're going to skip that first stitch, which is a single crochet, and single crochet into the next, which is a chain space, and continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next. And just as a quick tip, these shoulder rows should have the same amount of stitches as our last neckline row, since we aren't doing any increases or decreases. Our second shoulder row is now complete, which was our second moss stitch row. Now we're going to do our single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back. Our first 3 shoulder rows are completed. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 3 previous rows until we now have a portion that can reach from mid-chest. So placing this first row at mid-chest, making sure that the tail end is still at our under bust, until we have a portion that can reach roughly 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder. Then I will meet everyone back right after we do a chain up, 1 and cut, right after a single crochet row. We are back and my shoulder portion is complete. I now have a total of 34 rows. My width is now roughly 9 inches or 22 centimeters. I did do a chain up, 1 and cut right after my last row. So now that we have one front panel completed, we're going to be making a second one that is exactly the same. Then I'll meet you guys back to get started on the back panel. So now that we have both of our panels completed, we're now going to get started on the back panel. We're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last front panel shoulder row. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I have a total of 74 stitches. So getting started on the back panel, I'm going to start by making a chain of 74, but my back panel is already completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain for our back panel, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to single crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, and continue with 1 single crochet into every chain. Our row 1 is complete. Our second row is going to be our moss stitch row. So chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next, and continue on with our moss stitch row till we reach the end. Our row 2 is now complete. Now just to get started on our row 3, chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, and continue on with our moss stitch row. Now that our row 3 is completed, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 3 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, until we have a back panel that can reach across our back. So starting from 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder, all the way across our back till we're 2 inches past the tip of our other shoulder. Then once we have that completed, I will meet everyone back right after a single crochet row. But as you guys can see, mine is already completed. I have a total of 66 rows. My width is roughly 17 inches or 43 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to seam the front and back panels together, starting with our shoulders. So what we're going to do is seam our shoulders, and we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, making sure that the neckline is towards the middle of our back panel. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, then do a single crochet seam. So we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull our yarn through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then to do our seam, we're going to find that first side row within the front panel, find that top loop and insert. Find that same top loop within the back panel, insert with a single crochet. Let's do that again. Into our following side row within the front panel, we're going to find that top loop, insert. Same side row within the back panel, find that top loop, and insert with a single crochet. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into the front panel's shoulder. Then once we do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So now that our shoulder seam is completed, we're now going to seam up the sides. So what we're going to do is make sure the work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seams for the shoulders is still along the outside. Then we're going to insert our stitch marker into the stitch that we have for the width that we'd like for the sleeve to be. I'd like for my sleeve to be just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters, so I inserted my stitch marker into the 28th stitch from the top. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel and do a single crochet seam to reach our stitch marker. So once when our hook is in through the bottom corner stitches, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then just finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet. Again, first stitch into the front, first stitch into the back, single crochet, and continue doing this until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. Everything is all seamed together, and now we're going to get started on our sleeve. So what we're going to want to do is start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. Then what we're going to do from here is make an even number chain the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. So you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be just about 17 inches or 43 centimeters because I want a long sleeve. So I'm going to start by making a chain 64. Now for the portion of the sleeve, I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain, remembering mine is a sample size, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't actually count as a stitch. That's our turning chain. Then into the chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert, starting with a single crochet and continue with 1 single crochet into every chain. So now that our first row is completed, we're now going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Now for the sleeve, it is still going to be our 3-row repeat. So whenever we're doing a moss stitch row that starts along the base, we're going to start with a chain 1 first and flip our work. Now that our work is flipped, we're going to skip the first stitch and single crochet into the next. So making sure that we're not counting our slip stitches into the base, we're going to skip that first stitch and into the next, insert with a single crochet. That should give us our first 2 stitches for this row, which is that chain space, and then our single crochet. Then from here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. Our row 2 is now complete. Now to get started on our 3rd row, which is a moss stitch row that starts along the outer edge, we're going to chain 2 and flip. And just like all of our other moss stitch rows, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, which should be a chain space from the previous row, to reach the end of the row. Our row 3 is now complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did for our previous rows. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base and repeat. Now this is still going to be a 3-row repeat, so sometimes our single crochet row will end along the base or end along the outer edge like how this one's about to. So all we would do for this row is flip our work, finding that first stitch from our previous row, not into any of those slip stitches into the base, insert with a single crochet and continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these rows with no increases, no decreases, making our way all the way around our armhole. Once we've made our way all the way around, I'll meet you guys back so we can seam it all together. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed making our way all the way around with our sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. Now this seam is going to be the same exact seam that we did for the sides. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to flip our work wrong side out and do our same single crochet seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut, then we can get started on the cuff. So getting started on the cuff, we're going to first make sure that our work is flipped right side out now, meaning all of our seams are along the inside again. Insert our hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom edge of our sleeve, insert our yarn onto our hook, and we're going to be doing some half double crochets with some decreases. So start by pulling our working yarn through, do a chain of 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, we just need the height. Then from here, we're all going to find our first side row, and this is my first side row right here. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook in through that top loop, pull through. Into that next side row, find that top loop, insert, pull through to have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now another decrease, yarn over, into the top loop of that following side row, insert, pull through, into the top loop of that following side row, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now from here, we're just going to continue to do these decreases, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you guys back. So we are back. We made our way all the way around with our half double crochet decreases. Now we're going to close off the row by slip stitching into that second chain that we made when we started off this row. So there's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into there, so yarn over, pull through everything. Now we're going to do our ribbing. So start with a chain 2, and working in the same direction that we were going for our previous row, we're going to be alternating between 1 front post and 1 back post double crochet. So yarn over, finding that first half double crochet decrease from our previous row, making sure we're not working into that chain 2. We're going to find that, insert your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now the following is going to be a back post, so yarn over. Bring your hook underneath our work, in through that next gap, and then over that next half double crochet decrease, and through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now just to do this all over again, yarn over, bring your hook underneath the body of that following post stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then yarn over. To do a back post, bring your hook underneath our work, in through that next gap, over that next stitch, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2. From here, continue with 1 front post double and 1 back post double, making our way all the way around. So we have made our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left, we have slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row. From here on out, it's going to be a repeat of our previous row. So after our slip stitch, we're going to chain 2, and working in the same direction as our previous row, we're just going to extend our previous row stitches to get some ribbing. So yarn over, finding that first stitch from our previous row, which should be a front post for everyone, insert your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2 for a front post, then yarn over, insert your hook underneath that following with a back post, because that one is a back post as well. From here, we're just going to make our way all the way around, extending our previous row stitches. Then just continue to repeat this row with no increases and no decreases until we get the cuff length that we would like. Once we have that, do a chain up 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. I've just completed my cuff. I have a total of 8 rows. This height is roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters. Now, once we have this, we're going to repeat everything we did here on the other side. Once we have both sleeves and cuffs completed, we can then get started on the bottom band. So making sure our work is slipped right side out, right side up, insert your hook into the bottom left corner stitch of our front panel. We're going to pull our working yarn through and start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we just want the height, and we're going to start with 1 half double crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around. So starting with a yarn over, finding that first side row, which is the same side row that our chain 2 is in, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, into the top of our following side row, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue making our way all the way around until we reach this other corner stitch. Then I'll meet you back. So our half double crochet row is complete. Now we're going to do our ribbing for the bottom band. So what we're going to do is chain 2 and flip. And to do our first front post double crochet, we're going to yarn over. We are going to skip that edge stitch because we want the edge to be nice and straight. So into that second stitch, we're going to do a front post double, then a back post double, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around until we have just 1 stitch left. So we've made our way all the way down with our following row. Now we're going to close it off with a half double crochet because we want the edge to be nice and straight. So we should all just have one stitch left, making sure we're not counting that chain 2, and just half double crochet into the top of that last stitch from our previous row. Now from here, for the bottom band, we're just going to continue to extend our previous row stitches until we get the total length that we want. So chain 2 and flip. And just like for our cuff, we're just going to extend. So finding the first post stitch from our previous row, remembering not working into that edge stitch, we're going to do a post stitch. Now mine looks like a back post, so I'll be doing a back post, but if yours looks like a front, that's fine as well. You'll be doing a front post. My falling stitch looks like a front post, so I'll be doing a front post. From here, we're just going to continue to extend our previous row stitches, making sure we close off every row with just one half double crochet into the top of the last stitch from our previous row because we want the edges to be blunt. Continue on with this until we get the total height that we want, and I'll meet everyone back right after we finish an even number of rows. Alright, so we are back and our bottom band is complete. I have a total of 8 rows. This length is roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to get started on our front band. Now, since we're already along the bottom right meaning everything is flipped right side out, and our bottom band is nearest to us, we're going to half double crochet all the way up and over to get started on our front band. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. So what we're going to do is put 2 half double crochets into every side half double crochet row, then 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here, we're going to insert with 2 half doubles. So there's 1 into that same with a second. Again, our following side row with 1 and then with a second. Continue on with this until we work our way up our bottom band, then 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we worked into our last stitch that we have, so the last stitch that the tail end is in. So we are back. We've made our way up with our half double crochets, working our way up our front panel. Now we have that last stitch, which is the same stitch that our tail end is in, and all we're going to do is an increase of 3 half doubles. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and we do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into that first stitch that we did into this increase. Now from here, we have a few side rows to work into for the rest of our front panel. We're going to be putting 2 half double crochets into every side row. We're all going to find our first side row, insert in through that top loop with 2 half doubles. So there's 1 into that same with a second. Continue doing this, working our way up the rest of our front panel, and then once we reach where our shoulder seam is, I will meet you guys back to work across the back. So we are back. We have made our way up the entirety of our front panel with our half double crochets. Now working across the top of our back panel, just put 1 half double crochet into the top of every side row that we have. Now for this back portion, this needs to end on an odd number of stitches. So if you guys end on an even number, which I will, I'm just going to be adding 1 additional stitch into that last side row. Then once we have that, we're going to be working down our front panel until we reach our tail end stitch right over here. So just working down our front panel until we reach that corner stitch, 2 half double crochet into every side row, similarly to how we did this side over here. Then I will meet you guys back so we can do our increase and insert our stitch marker. So we just made our way across our back panel and down our front panel with our half double crochets. Now we are at this corner stitch. So at this corner stitch, to match this one, we're going to do an increase of 3 half double crochets. So just into that corner stitch, 3 half doubles. And into that increase, we're now going to insert our stitch marker into the last stitch so we can match this stitch marker over here. From here, continue with 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Once we reach the bottom band, 2 half double crochet into each of those. Then once we reach the end of the row, I will meet you guys back. So our first row is complete. Now we're going to get started on our ribbing. So since we're in the bottom corner stitch, what we're going to do is chain 2 and flip. And just like for our cuff and our bottom band, we're going to be alternating between a front post and a back post double. So starting with the yarn over, finding the second stitch from our previous row, not that edge stitch, because remember we still want it to be nice and blunt. We're going to start with a front post double crochet, then into that next stitch, a back post double crochet. From here, we're going to continue to do 1 front post, 1 back post, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker stitch. Alright, so we are back. We've made our way up until we reached our stitch marker stitch. Now, if we did our math correctly, the last stitch that everyone should have done should have been a back post double crochet. And now, into that stitch marker stitch, it is going to be a front post for everyone. So I'm going to take the stitch marker out for now. And into that following stitch, just do our front post double crochet. Go ahead and insert your stitch marker into that stitch. Now I like to insert my stitch marker into the body of the stitch, but you can insert it into the top if you'd like. Then we're going to do our increase, and our increase is going to be 2 half double crochets into the following stitch, so into the top of that half double crochet. With 1 half double, same top stitch with a second half double crochet. Now from here, just into that following stitch, we're going to continue on with our front and back post per usual now. So our following stitch is a back post double crochet because we just did a front post. So we're going to yarn over, finding that next stitch, which should be the second stitch from our increase. We're going to bring our hook underneath, through the other side with a back post double crochet. And then from here, we're going to continue to do our front and back post doubles, making our way all the way up and over until we reach our stitch marker on this side, and then I will meet you guys back. So we are back. We've made our way around the top of the back panel and down the other front panel, and now we're going to do the increase on this side. So this increase is going to mirror the other increase that we just did. So everyone's last stitch that we did right before our stitch marker stitch should have been a back post if our math was correct. And now we're going to do 2 half double crochets into the top of that next stitch, and then a front post double into that stitch. So starting with a yarn over, and start with 2 half doubles. So there's 1, there's 2, then into the top of the stitch, which should be the last stitch, into this increase, we're going to do a front post double crochet. So insert underneath, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, go ahead and insert your stitch marker into that stitch. From here, continue on with our back post because we just did a front post, back post double, front post double, making our way all the way down, leaving one last stitch so that we can close it off and get started on the following row. So we've made our way down with our front and back post doubles, leaving that last stitch. Now into that last stitch, just to make sure that we maintain a blunt bottom, we're going to half double crochet into that last stitch, pretty much the same way that we did for the bottom band. Now we're going to get started on the following row. So chain 2 and flip. Now from here, we're going to get started on the following row, and the following row is just going to extend our previous row stitches. So finding the first post stitch from our previous row, remembering we're not working into that edge, my first post stitch is a back post. So I'll be doing a back post. If yours is a front, you'll be doing a front. And we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker stitch. So we've made our way up to our stitch marker stitch for our row 3. Now we're going to do that increase. So everyone's last stitch before the increase should have been a front post double crochet. Now that post stitch, that is our increase, is now a back post because we're looking at the inside of our piece. So we're going to do that back post double crochet and insert a stitch marker into that stitch. So now that that post stitch is completed, we're going to complete our increase with 2 half double crochets into the top of that stitch from our previous row. So this is my stitch right here. I'm going to insert with 2 half double crochets. So there is 1, there is 2, and then into that following stitch, we're all going to do a back post double crochet. So into that following stitch, we're going to do a back post double crochet, which is that second half double. And now from here, we're going to continue to extend our previous row stitches. Our increase is completed, so the following stitch is going to be a front post double crochet for everyone. So continue to extend our previous row stitches, making our way all the way around until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. So we've made our way all the way up and around with our third front and back post row. We're now at our following stitch marker stitch, so we're going to do that increase together. So taking a look at the inside of our piece, because that's the direction that we were going, we're now going to work into the 2 half double crochets that we did. So into that edge half double crochet, we're going to do the following stitch in our stitch sequence, which is a back post double crochet. So yarn over, underneath that first half double crochet from our previous row, we're going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then from here, we're going to do our increase. So just into that following stitch, an increase of 2 half doubles. So there's 1, there's 2. Then we're going to do our post stitch, which should be a back post double crochet for everyone. So I'm going to take out my stitch marker, do my back post double, and I will make sure to insert my stitch marker into that stitch. Then from here, continue to extend our previous row stitches to reach the end of the row, making sure that once we reach the end, we're putting 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. Our row 3 is completed. So I'm just going to get started on the following row with you guys and let you guys do the rest on your own. So for each of these rows, we are still going to be extending our previous row stitches. So from where we're at, we're going to chain 2, flip into the first post stitch from our previous row, extend our previous row stitches all the way up until we reach our stitch marker stitch. Then I'll show you how to do that increase once more. So for our row 4, we've made our way all the way up until we reached our stitch marker stitch. Now what we're going to do from here is that front post double. That stitch marker stitch is always going to be a front post double crochet. Don't forget to insert your stitch marker into that stitch. Then we're going to be doing 2 half double crochets into that following stitch, so into the top of that first half double crochet increase from our previous row. So there's 1, there's 2. Then right after that half double crochet increase, we have that one last half double crochet from our previous row's increase. Now we're just going to do the following stitch. Now what we're going to do is just take a look at that following stitch, which is a front post double crochet. And we do want to make sure that we don't put 2 front posts next to each other or 2 back posts next to each other. So since this is a front post, into that second half double, we're going to be doing a back post double crochet. Then from here, continue to extend our previous row stitches. So a front post, a back post, making our way all the way up and around until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. So we've made our way up and around with our row 4. We are at our next stitch marker stitch. We didn't work into that increase of 2 half doubles yet, and now it is going to mirror this one on this side. So the last stitch that we should have been a front post double crochet, and the following set of stitches should be our increase. So into that first half double crochet, we are going to be doing a back post double crochet. So yarn over into that edge half double with 1 back post double crochet. Then into the top of that following half double crochet, an increase of 2 half double crochets. Now our stitch marker stitch is always going to be a front post double crochet when we're working into our even number rows. So just front post into there, inserting your stitch marker into there. And from here, continue to extend our previous row stitches to reach the end of the row, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. So we are back. Our 4th row for our front band is complete. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we get a front band width that we'd like, and I'll meet you guys back right after we finish up with an odd number row, right after we do a chain up a 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed the entirety of our front band. Now I have a total of 5 rows. My width is just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, so I did do a chain up 1 and cut. Now we can get started on our pockets. So getting the pocket started, what we're all going to want to do is start by making an even number chain, the height that we'd like for the pocket to be, but keeping in mind that we will have a top brim as well. I'd like for my pocket to be just about 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 18. So now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Then into that chain that we blocked off with the second chain from our hook, insert with a single crochet, then put 1 single crochet into every chain. Our first row is complete. Now the following row is going to be a moss stitch row because we are going to match the row sequence for the front and back panel. So chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, and continue on with our first moss stitch row to reach the end. Our row 2 is complete, and our third row is going to be another moss stitch row. So chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next, which should be our chain space, and continue on with our second moss stitch row to reach the end. So our first 3 rows are completed. We're going to continue to repeat these 3 rows until we get the width of the pocket that we would like. I'll meet you guys back right after we have that completed, right after a single crochet row. So we are back. I have just completed the width of my pocket. I have a total of 28 rows. My width is roughly 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Now we're going to do the brim. So from where we're at, we're just going to chain 2, and working along the top of our piece, we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every side row. So start with a chain 2 like I said. Doesn't count as a stitch, we just need the height. Then starting with a half double into the top of that first side row with 1 half double, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every side row. So our half double crochet row is complete. Now we're just going to do the brim, which is just front and back post double crochets, so we should already know how to do this. We're going to chain 2 and flip. And finding that second stitch from our previous row, remember we're not working into that edge stitch ever. We're going to insert with a front post, then into that next stitch with a back post, and continue to do this till we have one stitch left. At the end of the row, simply insert with a half double crochet into the top of that stitch just to make sure that we have a clean edge. Then for the rest of the brim, we're just going to continue to extend our previous row stitches until we get the brim height that we want. Once we have that, do a chain up 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back. Now, as you guys can see, for my pocket band, I did 3 rows, that is including my first half double crochet row. Then once we have that completed, we're going to be making a second pocket panel that is exactly the same. Then what we're going to do is simply weave it onto our front panels. Now, this is going to be completely up to you and whatever technique you guys want to do. I have actually already connected mine to my front panels. I'm just going to give you guys some really quick tips. I just used a tapestry needle and just wove it in. Now what I like to do is place the bottom of my pocket and align it with the edge of the front panel just so it can have the cleanest looking edge. Then I want to make sure when we are weaving in the sides, I'm finding 1 row within the front panel and I'm weaving it in through that row just so that our pocket doesn't slant in any direction. Then once we have that completed, repeat the same thing on the other side, then you'll be all done. Then the last thing we'll have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!